Hey there, my name is Jason Bradley. You may recognize my voice from such places as the Community Solutions Podcast, which, by the way, you're listening to now. Before we begin, can I bend your ear for just a moment? We want to bring you the very best in quality and information each week. You can help us achieve that level of greatness. If you sell something, want to announce something, or try to convince others to vote for you, consider advertising on the Community Solutions Podcast. You can email us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com, and we'd love to help you tell everyone about what you do. Once again, that's commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. Let us be your solution to increased sales. We thank you ahead of time for your consideration. Okay, enough yammering. On with the show. To all of you who believe that government is the answer, we are the rust upon your gears. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Back for another episode. In fact, episode number 25. We are hitting the quarter century mark today. So,
wow, that's impressive.
It is.
It really is.
It is. Not everybody has that kind of longevity to keep at it week after week after week.
25 of I don't know how many, but my guess is a lot.
That's a pretty good guess.
The work never ends.
That is true. Jason Bradley with me as always, Andrew Richter.
Always great to be here. Always a great, wonderful thing that we talk about every week, and we've got an interesting subject, I think, for people today.
I think that we do too.
Not that we're not always interesting.
That's true. It's kind of a little different podcast for us today. Before we get into that, I just want to say, and this kind of leads into what we're going to talk about anyways. You know, talking about doing what we do and what goes into that. We have people that come to us all the time and they're telling us about what happens in their cities, and you and I both got some news about Plymouth, Minnesota this week that I thought that all of you should know about us.
City I happen to be living in right now.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
I happen to be in a much better city, government-wise.
Well, I got a better congressman, but
that's great.
I'll take that. Other than that, I agree.
Wow, Plymouth.
Plymouth, let's back up for a sec. Plymouth, a place I think that's stereotyped a certain way, I think is thought of as being on one side of the political spectrum more than the other. But we've always talked about here, and I think why, what we do is so important. Everybody looks at it from a top-down view. Everybody looks at it from a national or state view. And when you break it down to the lowest form of government, you don't always see that consistency, whether it's there at the top and not at the bottom. And Plymouth, following suit to some other cities, of course, every city's a copycat. Some of them haven't had a new idea since Moby Dick was a minnow. And they, what now? They want to do the 21-year-old that we talked about a few weeks ago.
The minimum age to purchase tobacco. Yeah.
Like I said, why not make it 70? Why don't you have to be 70?
Well, that'd be a good starting point.
Can't a 22-year-old get addicted to something? I mean, why don't we make it 100? Why don't we make it illegal if it's so terrible?
Right.
But I come back to we need to pick one age. I mean, I'm not saying what age that is. I'm not saying that, but I mean, Plymouth following suit with these other cities, and they got another tax proposal, huh, Jay?
I heard that. So, say you're having family come to town, you don't have quite enough room to put them all up. You say, hey, there's a hotel close by. Guess what? They're discussing having a lodging tax on hotels, which by state statute, that money then is supposed to go to a visitor center. Why do we need a visitor center in Plymouth?
I have no idea.
please explain that to me. And
or anywhere for that matter.
Well, yeah.
I mean, maybe you wanted the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe I could see an argument for when you cross a state border into a new state, having a welcome center with state maps. Here's the things the state offers.
Which usually is run by the DNR anyway.
Right. And I'm not still a huge proponent of that, but I've used them, when I've taken a road trip.
Just did on my honeymoon.
There's one right when you get into Louisiana, coming from Mississippi, that has like fresh brewed coffee and all this kind of stuff. It was pretty amazing, but I can't imagine what they paid.
Was that the highlight of Louisiana for you? Or
no, no. I'm a music guy. New Orleans is good stuff.
Yeah, no, I love
that.
I like that music too.
Yeah, but to have one in Plymouth, Minnesota, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Welcome to Plymouth from Buffalo,
and here's the thing: the visitor center. To me, a lodging tax is a way to tax people who don't live in Plymouth. You're taking advantage of people visiting the city,
right?
You should want people visiting the city. You're not going to get all the commerce and everything from just residents who live there,
right?
And then you're going to turn around and spend it at a visitor center, welcoming them. They're going to be paying for for a visitor center to visit. They finance. I mean, it's just kind of and if I know city government, they're going to build a $20 million building. It's going to have every solar panel and thing you could possibly imagine in there. Daycare center, a place for Muslims to pray, blah blah blah. I mean, it's going to be so overdone,
right, and
just so over the top. My question is, and I don't know if you know the answer, but what would be motivating Plymouth to do this? I mean, what has Plymouth got to gain? Are people from New Hope going to come and visit the visitor center? I mean, what? Plymouth is not a vacation destination.
No, it's not.
It's not like it's you've got Itasca State Park, or you've got the Boundary Waters or something. They're not a place somebody. You're going to go there to see family during Christmas, and that's probably it. I mean, it's not close to the airport, so you don't have people lodging there that way. And you don't have very many corporate offices the way you have them in like Richfield or Bloomington, or a place like that, or even Minneapolis. I mean, so what is the why? I mean, what is the thinking? What if every city did this?
Yeah.
I mean, some cities don't have very many hotels. Plymouth has quite a few.
Right.
Is that what they're doing? Are they saying, okay, we got to get more revenue they're not paying enough in property taxes, so we've got to get them another way?
I don't know. I mean, state law supposedly says that the lodging tax has to go to the visitor center.
Yeah, my guess is that...
How strict is that,
who's going to police that? I mean, who's going to arrest people in Plymouth if that doesn't happen?
And here's the other thing. So they raise money, they set up a visitor center. Does that tax then go away, or does it keep going? And if it does go away, they're going to hire a manager and 5 full-time employees who are all going to get the same really good government benefits. The visitor center will need maintenance and upkeep and those types of things.
And remember, that's from 2 different places.
Yeah.
The big expenses will come out of the comprehensive annual financial report.
Right.
The day-to-day expenses will come out of the budget.
Yeah.
So how transparent is that?
Well,
you build a building, I mean, you're going to have that in the debt service.
Yeah.
I guarantee you they don't have $20 million laying around. So you're going to have that on top of it. Then the operations part. And nobody there is going to get paid $30,000. So... wonder what the cost over like 50 years is of this, and compare that to listening to the BS you hear from city councils about we don't have enough money for police and fire, and then they go off and do crap like this.
Yeah,
or they got a golf course, or they've got a pool, or they've got an amphitheater, or whatever they have. It's just. It just goes to show that no matter where you live, good and bad government have nothing to do with if you're in a blue area or a red area, or if you're in a what's perceived to be something or other. The bad ideas are everywhere.
They are. And we have found that out through all of this work that we've been doing over time. And it has helped us to be able to help others win elections in not only getting a 6-1 majority in Crystal, but also winning in Champlin and Farmington and Bloomington and Apple Valley and Spring Lake Park and Coon Rapids. We have had a hand in those places and others where we have been able to share our information, but also have a hand in consulting and helping, and a lot of it, the blogs that we write and all this. What is it like to be us? And I don't want to bore you with that. What's it like to be us? What I'm trying to say is
bore people.
Well,
we're exciting.
We are. Well, we think we are.
Was that one time?
Nothing is more exciting than staying up till 3 a.m. and reading a comprehensive annual financial report.
God,
I'll tell you that.
It is pretty exciting, I'll tell you.
But there are some of you who, like us, a fire burns in your belly, and you are upset about something happening where you live. You don't think that your city council hears you. You don't think your school board hears you. You feel overwhelmed because you're terribly outnumbered at all levels of government. I am telling you that can change. The local level is the easiest place to make that change. And for those of you who have like-minded people representing you at the state and at the U.S. Capitol, I'm telling you that there is still enough that happens by a city council that doesn't think like you do, that it is throwing a wrench into the gears.
Well, the city councils, city councils are no different than any other form of government. If they're not being watched, if they think they can get away with something, if they think that you're just going to take whatever they give you, they're going to keep doing what they're doing. They have no incentive to change.
Right.
And sometimes it's a case where you don't have an alternative voice on a council. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a case where you don't have people on the council with big ideas that can get swayed by city staff or get pushed around by a majority on the councils. I think, though, that everything, there's strength in numbers. There just is. Mm-hmm. There's strength in numbers. And one of the things that I know that helped us in Crystal was not only strength in numbers, but what I call wedge issues, niche issues. Mm-hmm. We ran into that with the Crystal Airport.
Right.
Where, we caught the city council in a lie. All of them lied about mm-hmm. it, except with the exception of maybe one or two people, about wanting to get rid of the airport and put up high-density housing, which, by the way, is still in Crystal's comprehensive plan. It's not going to be implemented because the current council will never do that, but they're technically not completely in control with MAC running the airport, operating it. But, it was recommended to close. Now, the airport's not a left versus right issue. It's not and just to back up a second, some of the houses along the Crystal Airport could not be built today.
Right.
1983, the legislature passed a law that changed the setback to the airports, and so we were grandfathered in to the old law. But I think some were trying to use that law as an excuse to try to pretend that it was unsafe over there or something, and again, the public lies from the former mayor on down mm-hmm. about what would happen or what could happen or what they were advocating for. And it's an area that if you live by there, and I used to, the airport's part of the feel of our city. Mm-hmm. You tear that down and you put up high-density Section 8 housing, you've changed that area forever.
Yeah.
And I got nothing against people who rent. I got nothing against things like that. But when you purposely try to do that, you're talking a whole new ballgame, mm-hmm. as far as I'm concerned. And so it's, but that was certainly an issue that got people upset and angry. I tell you what, you want to get a city council full of angry people, throw a $7,000 special assessment on them.
Yeah,
you have everybody and their mother coming in. You got friends, enemies, all on the same side with that. And again, an assessment, and under state law, they can do this. Under state law, in theory, it improves your property value, so they have a legitimate case. A person would lose in court if they tried to challenge an assessment. But whether assessments are the best way to pay for something or not is a debate that your city council probably had in the 1960s and hasn't had since.
Right.
It just is.
Right.
So, those are the kinds of things you got to find, and you'll find them in your city. You'll find the issues that galvanize people. Mm-hmm. And those were two that I noticed pretty quick. That did not, and of course the Highway 81 tax, which was another. I mean,
right.
That, a county can come in, tax a city because they don't feel like paying for a county road.
Right.
Which should be illegal, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be. Now, granted, I'm paying for it no matter what. You're paying for it no matter what. Mm-hmm. So you're robbing me from a different pocket. But one of the problems we have with roads is it's so convoluted, the financing, that you can't hold anybody accountable for it. Well, it's ridiculous. So that's. I mean, those are some things that thinking back on it, when we meeting in a friend's basement and discussing these things with half a dozen or 10, 12 like-minded people, was a great way to let everybody sort of air out what they were thinking and what they were witnessing and what they were seeing. I really miss some of those meetings. They were fun, and they were sort of our beginning, if you will, into local activism. We didn't know where we were going with it, but meeting was. I mean, it was a pretty big deal back then.
It was. I mean, nobody else that I knew of was doing things like that, and I pitched the idea to various people, and they weren't interested, and kind of on a larger scale, and they're still doing nothing, But it's funny you bring that up. Finding a wedge issue versus you see a lot of people that will run for city council, and they're mad because the city told them they can't have 39 cats in a one-bedroom house, and so that is the wrong reason to run for city council. And really, it could be a catalyst to get you started into what we do, but to run for city council, you need to be more outward focused towards the people of the city.
Let me tell you the biggest lesson I learned. You got to be a listener. It's one thing to have a million ideas, and I know when I ran, I had 5 million ideas.
Yeah.
But if I could go back and change something, I'd have been a better listener. When you walk up, when you door knocking is something that you have to learn how to do. Mm-hmm. I'm not afraid to knock at anybody's door, but you knock on somebody's door, and instead of trying to explain the comprehensive annual financial report to them, you got to listen to what they think is important and react to that. And if I could look back at myself, that's something I didn't do a very good job of. And I think it separates an activist from a candidate. The person who wants 39 cats should be gathering neighbors to try to change that law, if that's what they're passionate about. But running for office is about representing people. It's about sticking up for your city. It's about fiscal responsibility with taxpayer dollars. It's about you take an oath to protect their rights, to protect liberty.
Right.
And if you have one little pet peeve thing, and you really don't have any ideas about anything else, then an activist is where you belong.
Right.
You should be writing letters to the editor. You should be getting on a commission. You should be, attending open forum and the mayor's time or whatever. I can't remember what they call that in Crystal, but citizen input time. Yeah. I mean, that's where you should be if that is your passion. And it's hard sometimes. Not everybody's cut out to be a candidate, no. And I've had to sit down with people and tell them, look, I don't think you can do this. I probably didn't word it like that,
right?
But I've tried to steer some people toward being a candidate. You've done the same.
Yep.
You try to steer some people toward doing something else with the thought of maybe in the future when they learn what they're doing, they can be a candidate for something.
I mean, how many times have we sat down with somebody and mid-cycle we found out they haven't done any work, or they haven't put a team together, or they've disappeared off the face of the earth, or they're terrible with people, or they can't physically get out and knock on doors.
I hate to say it, it's most people.
Yeah,
I really think it is. I mean, I think finding a person who's great at all that is few and far between.
Right.
I mean, that's why.
I mean, you don't have to be the perfect person to be a candidate.
No, but I'll tell you what you have to have. You've got to have some charisma, and you've got to have. It's hard to be an introvert and be that, and that sounds bad to say, but you got to be somebody to where. I can remember being at airport days when I was running for mayor, and I didn't have a little sign because I was working it, and I didn't want to do that behind there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I said who I was, shook hands with as many people as I could. Some people didn't want to talk to me. So I just kept a smile on my face. I had great conversations with people, and I was exhausted at the end of it. I was so tired. And I was just, oh man, what do you think about this? And blah blah blah. And then I get home and read email, and it was a lot of work. But you can't be afraid of doing that. And some people are naturally like that, and some people have to learn how to be that way.
Exactly. Case in point, I'm an introvert, but I have learned to, in public settings, be able to mix and mingle, or to network, to have conversations, how to look somebody in the eye, give a firm handshake, all of that stuff. But why don't we break this down a little bit further? Let's talk about, because that's where most people tend to gravitate towards first, is being a candidate. Right. So let's talk a little bit just about what that takes to be a candidate and what kind of work you can expect to put in.
Okay. Well, I mean, the first thing I tell people, the earlier you start, the better.
Right.
If you're even thinking about, let's just pretend it's August 2017 right now.
Yes.
If you are even thinking about running for something in 2018, it might sound like it's a long way off. It's not. Okay? We'll have caucus in February, March. If you are part of a political party, maybe you're not, maybe you are, you will have a convention after that caucus. If caucus is a good place to go, because you're going to see passionate, like-minded people, depending on your point of view. You're talking that 5 months from now. Okay, well, you can't be thinking about running, but you've got people there to talk to at that, and you're going to want to be able to do that. Then you've got May, where people sign up. You've got a primary in August. It's a condensed period of time. So my first advice is the earlier is the better. If you're even thinking about it, you got to start doing some work tonight.
Yeah.
Whether that is attending meetings or work sessions, whether that is getting your butt on a commission if you're not on one already, whether that is volunteering for something. I mean, there's all these groups, and groups have VFWs, they have legions, they have lions, they have places you can corn feeds. They have places you can go and be seen. And you've got to be a volunteer. You've got to be out there. You've got to be. People have to know who you are. They got to hear your name. They got to put your face to a name. And that doesn't start next summer.
No.
You should be doing that now. You've got to start thinking, okay, if I'm going to do this, how well do I know campaign finance law?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're going to need a bank account, and you're going to need yard signs. Well, who do you know who makes them? Most people don't know anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You got to start thinking, I'm going to have some hand out something to somebody.
Right.
How's that going to look, and what's it going to say? And so the thing that I always tell people is, don't start running in the summer of the even year. You've got to be a year before then. You have to, even if you don't do it, you're still laying the groundwork to do it in the future.
Yeah.
You know, and if you feel you're not ready, you got to latch on to a campaign. Do you know what happens at a campaign meeting? You know,
it's good to work on a campaign or two before you run. I mean,
I've been working on campaigns since 2002.
Yeah.
Both from governor on down.
So, working on a campaign team, how did that prepare you for running your own race?
Well, a couple things. First thing you see is what to do and what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to campaign meetings that took 3 hours and we accomplished nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say who or what. I've worked with people who hand out orders, and that's what they do. My advice is the smaller the better. That's one thing I learned.
Yeah.
Your brain trust.
Mm-hmm.
3-4 people max. You can't have 12 people at a meeting, because I'll say this, and people get angry with me when I say it, all opinions aren't equal. And if 15 people think that their opinion is the most important, you're going to spend 4 hours arguing, and you're not going to spend any time doing anything.
Right.
I think the second thing it did, I got to know people. I got to know what to put on a lit piece. I got to know who worked on yard signs and who got them done quickly and made them look good. Mm-hmm. I got to know who, I went to the door with candidates and looked at what they said or what kind of responses they got or how they handled a hostile situation. And there's so many little things that you can't teach somebody. It's kind of like drafting a quarterback. You learn a little bit by watching, you learn a bit by playing, you learn maybe a little bit by failing, you learn a little bit by watching film, you learn a little bit from your coach. Mm-hmm. And it kind of works the same way. You learn from the people you work for. You also learn pretty quickly what they do well and what they don't do well.
Right.
And then you also have to stand your ground sometimes and not be afraid to disagree. You have to learn how to ask for a vote.
Yeah.
That's not very easy to do.
Delegating.
Yeah, delegating is huge. You got some candidates who want to micromanage everything, and they don't really trust people around them. So, believe me, I mean, I've been involved with it back into my 20s, and no campaign is perfect, but you sure figure out what works and what doesn't real fast.
Right.
And you have to bring that to the next campaign that you work at. Mm-hmm. And I have done everything from literature to yard signs to campaign manager. I haven't been a treasurer. I've been a state fair worker. I've been an election judge, a caucus convener. I mean, you name it. Yeah. You've pretty much done all that too. And I can tell you I learned a little bit every time from everything. You can take, the more experienced you are, I always say and here's another piece of advice I would give. Every campaign needs experienced people and new people. You can't take the same. One of my criticisms of a lot of campaigns that are run is they get the same 3 or 4 people that have run every damn thing ever.
Right.
And they may be great people, but if their batting average is not that high, you can maybe bring one of those people on.
Right.
But you can't have all new people, and you can't have all experienced people. You've got to have a mix.
Right.
You've got to have some people who. And you got to have a mix of personality. You got to have there's doers and there's talkers. There's people who are good with numbers. There's people who are good at handing out lit, but they're not good at managing a campaign. There's some people who are great with numbers, but they're not the type to knock on a door. And identifying them and putting them in their proper place is probably the toughest job that a candidate has. Because the bigger the election, the harder that becomes to do.
Yeah.
So it's big. I mean, you don't want to get bogged down in too much minutia.
Right. So, as a candidate, I mean, you can't think that you can approach this in, I'll just do it in my spare time here or there. I'm going to take vacations and go to the lake all the time. I'm going to, take weekends off. I mean, it becomes like a second job, and you got to put in some significant time, because there is putting together a campaign team, meeting with your campaign team, meeting with the other people that aren't on your core team, going out and door knocking, going out and flyering, going out and being at public events and meeting people. So if you aren't the kind of person that, let me put it this way, if you're the kind of person that wants to come home and watch Lost or whatever the big show now is, I don't even know because I'm not that plugged in.
Fuller House.
Whatever it is, if that's your idea of living, then being a candidate really isn't for you, because it's going to take that extra time. However, if you're driven, if you want to make a difference and you're driven and you want to work at it and you're competitive, if you love sports but never were able to make it as a professional athlete, maybe being a candidate is something that is right for you, because you get those competitive juices flowing, and you want to get out there and you want to knock the socks off the other guy.
Well, how many campaigns are won by the person who worked the hardest? Especially in a nonpartisan race. Most of them. Probably. I mean, the person with the most name ID.
Yeah.
The person with the most yard signs.
Right.
I mean, often the person who's, that has the best name ID is most well-known wins. Whether their views are necessarily in line with everybody else's, or their area, is kind of beside the point sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's again where being a volunteer is such a big deal. Hey, that's the guy who or gal who, works with veterans, or that's,
right.
That's the person who volunteered at the steak fry. That's where you open doors that maybe you couldn't open in a different kind of a race, where it's all about a label.
Right.
So I think, and again, having that personality I can tell you that a typical day for me back in June or July of 2012 was to work all day.
Yeah.
Knock on doors till dark.
Yeah.
Answer email till 11 p.m. Maybe I'd get my 15 minutes of Sports Center in.
Yeah.
And then I would probably, on some nights, that's when I'd watch a council meeting replay or something like that. And I'd be to bed about 1, and then I'd be up at about 5:30 the next day. I mean, there's your average day.
Right.
So, I mean, if that doesn't appeal to you, okay, and look, maybe it will in the future and it doesn't now. I don't know. I think that being a candidate isn't the right job for you, at least at this moment.
Right.
But yeah, you can't run a half-ass campaign and win. Maybe you can on occasion. If you're facing somebody even lazier, that can happen. But your role then is to volunteer or be on a commission that meets once a month. I mean, that should be what you're doing to get your foot in the door. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't.
Right.
I mean, it weeds out some people.
That's true.
Have a passion for the parks, maybe, but that doesn't translate to running for office. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, unless you're looking at a park district, or
Right.
I mean, you can use that for that kind of thing, obviously, in the future. But yeah, I think that you have to be a go-getter. You almost have to have an entrepreneurial mindset to be able to be a candidate, because you've got your fingers in all these different things, and you can't be waiting for things to come to you. You have to be the one making things happen. You have to be creating the buzz. You have to be writing the story. You can't be the one that allows the story of the election to be defined for you. You have to define the story of the election.
And by the way, the narrative is what I call it. The story is what you call it.
Yeah.
That's where you really need help too by other people. that's something you and I have done, and I will take credit for this. You and I create narratives like few people do.
Right.
I mean, that's where, people who do blogging, people who do podcasting, they all have a role in from Rush Limbaugh on down, they have a role in the political landscape. For me, and I can just say this personally, I have found that I would rather help 100 people win than win myself. That doing what you and I are doing now is what I am right now better at than being a candidate.
Right.
Now, if I were a candidate now, I would do some things differently, and maybe a result would be differently, because I've learned so much more. But I also take that experience as a candidate and transfer it to other people. And say, look, here are the 3 things I tried that worked. Here are the 3 things I tried that didn't work.
Yeah.
So they don't make those mistakes again.
Absolutely.
So you've got that also. But I've found that I'd rather do what we're doing. I'd rather be a blogger. I'd rather be a commentator, which is what I call what we do. We're not journalists. And I'd rather do that job and help out as many people as I can, get 100 wins than get one for myself. I'd rather make it about the movement than about me. And so, and that my mind may change on that in the future, but for now, that's, rest assured, I'm not running for governor or senator right now. So just, I mean, but that's a personal decision that took me a long time in politics to realize.
Right.
That this is what I feel I'm doing, what I'm meant to be doing.
And so do I. And I think that there are some people that, and we'll talk about this, but the level of work involved in doing what we do, I think having people who do what we do in every community, whether that's in a Senate district, whether that's in a city, whether that is in a school district, however you want to define that, is very important, because so many times we broke the news. So many times, we came and we told people what they had no idea was going on. But it is not something that is for the passive either.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something else too. Sometimes we shielded other people in the process.
Yeah.
Sometimes we took the crap so that candidates didn't have to. I mean, put it to you this way. Take an issue. I'll use West Metro Fire as a good issue.
Yeah.
Which was just a convoluted problem, and I dealt with that as a candidate. I dealt with that as a commentator.
Yeah.
We broke more stories about West Metro Fire, and I feel shielded people from. I mean, I know I got beat over the head about it. I mean, we broke the story when they were trying to get rid of the citizen representative. The Sun Post could have gone to that meeting and reported that and done the same thing.
They didn't.
And they didn't do that. Oh. I'll just put it, a New Hope City councilman tell me that when I was running for mayor, he was stepping down as the citizen rep. Well, that person's still the citizen rep 5 years later. And it was that person's proposal to get rid of the citizen rep in the first place.
Yep.
So, that's not going to get reported by anybody unless we do it. So, and yes, did I get beaten over the head for it? Sure. Did I have New Hope City council members calling me names? Yes. But ultimately, they were upset that I reported what they were doing. They didn't tell me I was wrong on the issue.
Right.
Oh, no, you're not wrong. That proposal is right in there.
Yeah.
They were just upset that somebody was. And I think that has a lot to do with the animosity toward you and me. Is that if this were 2004, there was no watchdog group organized and looking. I know it has a lot to do with what happened in Crystal.
Yeah.
Of the hatred toward us. Is that you had a cabal running things for a long, long time. Maybe some different people, but they were all the same clique.
Right.
You had to be one of them. And when we made some waves, we did it by quoting them, playing them at meetings, and their only defense was to get angry. But it's like, well, look, buddy, you said it. I mean, do you disavow? I mean, what? But again, they weren't used to having a group out there that was, pushing back.
Right.
And so a lot of the spewing came, somebody's real personality comes out.
Right.
And
yeah, exactly. When you put somebody under a microscope and kind of in a pressure cooker, you will see quickly who they are.
And by the way, it's not a personal attack.
No.
It's not a I'm not digging up whether they've slept with somebody or whether they've declared bankruptcy or whether they've cheated on their taxes. I'm not investigating in search of a crime. Okay? I'm not a special counsel. It was issue based.
Yeah.
And yes, personalities clashed, but personalities clashed because people's ideas were getting challenged, or lack of ideas.
Yes.
Were getting challenged for the first time. So say what you want about that. I stand by our reporting on stuff.
Yeah.
I stand by our reporting on people's behavior. If you want to talk down to people and you want to make faces when they're talking, you can't get angry when people call you out for it. You can make excuses. You can come back at me or you. That's fine. I don't care. I mean, you had the pleasure of having your name mentioned at a debate.
Yeah, that was fun. That was great. Oh.
You're making waves when that happens. So, you just, what do you do? But, again, you got to have the right, and this is something you have to learn, and I've said this before, you got to have the personality to be able to take some of that. And, people are going to rip on you on Facebook. They're going to dump on you when they think you're not looking. They're going to talk bad about you at a caucus or something when they think you're not there. And that's just, just an unpleasant part of what we do. But, you've got to have a backbone in this business. And if you don't, then again, a candidate, or maybe an out-front blogger or something, probably isn't best suited for you.
Right. And as a candidate or as an activist, those are definitely, frontline positions that attract that kind of fire. Now, for me personally, I love it. I mean, you're on a city council, you want to talk bad about me, you want to come after me, that's great. I take that as a badge of honor, that I'm doing my job and I'm finding out what is really hurting a community, because all of a sudden I've got people that don't want to change, and they're feeling that pressure, and the only thing that they have to resort to is name calling, and I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I like it. I understand that it comes with that, and I know when it first started happening, it was hard to get used to. And it's hard to get used to. Your family is something you always have to think about.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I know, my father was really active in the community.
Yeah.
Still is. He's not political like I am. But I know he didn't like seeing me get attacked. It was something, he's an old Marine. It wasn't something he liked very much.
Yeah.
And he didn't like some of the things I had to say either. And, and I told him, Dad, I can take care of myself. My sister didn't like it. And, they aren't political like I am. And so it was just kind of, that's kind of when the enormity of something kind of hits you. That,
right.
They get up and they read you getting, called names on a blog or something of that nature, or things that just outright aren't true. And it's very frustrating. But at the same time, that comes with the territory, and I try to shield people around me as much as possible. But if you have a passion for something and you have it, I've said this before. Politics is something that's just in your blood to do. it's not something you can shut off and on like some
right,
some radio or TV. There's something special about people, and I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. There's something special about people who are able to do this. Not everybody can. There's something special about a guy who can hit a 98 mile an hour fastball too. I can't do that.
Nope.
I can't act like Jack Nicholson. I can't sing like Frank Sinatra. But I do have this in my blood. And one of the things I do too, I meet people, and I know you can do this too. I can tell pretty quick who's got this in their blood and who maybe doesn't quite.
Right.
And so being a natural is always a plus. And I'll tell you what else is a plus. You got to, anytime you get in front of an audience, I've always loved talking in front of people.
Yeah.
I relish it. I mean, I get butterflies sometimes, but they're good butterflies.
Yeah.
I still get them sometimes when we go on the radio, especially if we're live. When we do a live show.
Yeah.
But I would do that 10 hours a day if I could. It's just the adrenaline rush. You and I got to speak at the U of M a few years ago. And
that was amazing.
Yeah, and I had people tell me, were you nervous? Something? Are you kidding me? It was. They could have given me 2 hours. I'd have talked for 2 hours. And you just learn. You learn how to, use humor, and you learn how to, But again, it's partly a natural talent, and it's partly something people can. I'm sure I'm better at it now than I was 5 years ago, without a doubt.
Yeah. I would say, though, for the general activist, and let's make a distinction here. For those of you that maybe you're competitive, but maybe you're not quite the people person that a candidate would have to be, then maybe being an activist is more for you, because, again, I get those competitive juices flowing. I want to beat the pants off of the competition. I want to... but I want to do it fairly. I don't lie. I don't, that's never acceptable.
Yeah.
So you have to be a good, honest person to do this. But at the same time, you have to want to beat the pants off people, and you have to want to work harder than they're working. And it comes in helping with campaigns, and it comes in putting content out on a regular basis. You can't blog once every blue moon and think that anybody's going to follow you. We have... I don't know how many hundreds of articles that are out there on our website right now.
Not to mention podcasts.
Our podcasts, yeah. And if you're looking at doing what we're doing, I mean, that's generally, you look at the podcasting, you look at the blogging, you look at maybe speaking with your local officials, working with other groups, especially if you know who is like-minded and running for office, being able to talk with them and work with them a little bit. Those are the kinds of things that you that you would need to do in a position like this. You don't necessarily need to do all the public speaking that we do. We've done so much public speaking, going around and doing all these events. That might not be for you, and that's fine. But somebody needs to hold down the fort in your community.
Well, and I think in answer to the question about if you're passionate about something and you kind of don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
That type. I mean, that's when it's imperative that you join a commission, become a volunteer, go to your caucus, become a delegate, go to your convention. I can tell you that one of the greatest things I ever did was do that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the first coffee meet I ever went to. I think you and I were the only two people under 40 at the time. But I mean, it was neat to. I wasn't the only one,
right?
And then I became a caucus convener. Didn't exactly know 100% what I was doing, but now I can do it easy. But then it was different, and it was a lot of fun. And I met a bunch of people who lived right by me. Your precinct is a couple hundred homes, maybe at the most. Something like that anyway. In Crystal, I guess there was, about 10 precincts in Crystal, maybe. So, you're talking maybe 1,000 or 2,000 people, maybe 50 of them show up or 30 of them show up or whatever it is, depending on the year. The presidential brings out more.
Yeah.
And then you attend your local convention, and all of a sudden you've got 200 friends that are like-minded.
Right.
And again, I mean, we're not directing this at left, right, middle. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying whatever you fall on, libertarian, whatever, you're going to find some like-minded people there. And you're going to find candidates running for higher office or whatever that you can glom onto. You could work out of, I know I've worked out of Congressional District 5 before in 2010 and 2014. I actually was paid a little bit to do some of that work. And so, you that's what you have to do if you kind of are interested and you're interested in more than one issue and, you don't know what to do with it.
Right.
And then eventually you can turn it into something like what you and I are doing.
Right.
It may not happen in a week, may not happen in a year, but you're going to learn so much during that time. Mm-hmm. You just can't imagine how much you're going to learn.
Right. But, to write an article in a blog, I mean, it's really not that hard. It's time consuming. It takes me maybe, I don't, because I'm doing a lot of the day-to-day business for what we do, don't get to write as many articles. It takes me a good 3 hours sometimes to do the research. I write mine, from front to back. It's all my words. You have a little different style. You will show a lot of times what they're writing, and then you'll comment on it. But that research takes a while too, and it's just different styles.
Well, and here's the other thing too. Sometimes you take an article you read or things that a city puts out there, and then you put your own comments around it. Yeah. Sometimes you see that and you're like, I'm going to write my own, what I really think went on.
Right.
Rather than their words, and do it that way. One of the things that I should say, cities do, you can sign up for monthly or sometimes bi-weekly email blasts from the city. A lot of them have Facebook pages now where, like I know in Crystal, the park board, the police department, the park and rec, they all have their own Facebook page.
Yeah.
The city, one of the things the city council do is they put out summaries now, which they didn't used to, but Mayor Adams and the current council have instituted that. They show up on the Facebook page as well as a lot of the council members have them on their websites. So you can get a summary of if you didn't watch the meeting or don't have time to sit there for 2.5 hours. You can do that. Work session packets are available, which they didn't used to be. And so the recordings are available, at least in Crystal. Brooklyn Park does it too. Yeah. Golden Valley actually films their planning commission meetings. So you can watch those. So does New Hope. Yeah. So they didn't do them. I don't think they do them yet in Crystal, but they didn't when I was on there anyway. So, there are avenues to, you don't have to wait for an article to come out and parse that, but I do that sometimes. But so there's numerous chances to, and a lot of them put out their agendas and things. There is a state requirement to do that. I believe it's 72 to 96 hours that the agenda has to be out. The meeting date, it's 10 days. But most councils lay that out pretty early in the year. And so you can get on an email list. I know in Crystal I used to be, where I would get the agendas emailed to me that Friday. I would read them that Friday night. Right. What was going on, what was going to be talked about for the upcoming Tuesday. Yep. So I know I got them on the Planning Commission because they would send them to me on the same day when we were talking about that Monday. So there are ways to sort of let them come to you, if you will, with information. And I'll tell you what, it did not take me long. I think I attended, it was the same thing at the school district. I think I attended 2 or 3 meetings before I had people coming up to me wondering who I was. And I tried to sit in the corner. I tried to downplay it. Yeah. I didn't, at that time, I didn't want, I didn't want to be known what I was doing. But, you have to, they'll find out who you are pretty fast. Yes. Put it that way.
Yes, they will. But it takes a lot of work. I mean, either one of those, it's really a go-getter type of position. Candidate or forming an activist group like we have, and it's not one where you can sit back on your heels. Now, there are positions, I wouldn't say you can sit back on your heels, but that are a little more passive, and if you're getting involved with a campaign, and you're, I wouldn't say a campaign manager, because you really need to be on top of things, but whether you're an idea person, whether you are treasurer or you're in charge of social media.
Here's the thing. Yeah. Here's the thing. A good campaign is going to take a person, figure out what they're good at, put them on that.
Yeah.
That's what a good campaign's going to do.
Right.
I mean, I know that when I was younger and wanted to join campaigns, I won't say who, the first thing I got asked was, well, how many hours can you devote? Is it 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week, 5 hours a week, 2 days a week, whatever? And then, what have you done? What do you want to do? What are you comfortable doing?
Right.
Guess what? They found something for me to do.
Exactly.
Whatever that was. Whether that was handing out lit, whether that was putting out yard signs, whether that was working at the state fair, making phone calls, working in the CD office. Mm-hmm. They'll find... They're not going to let a volunteer who they could put on something slip through their cracks. Now, there are campaigns that aren't that great at that.
Right.
Who just want to put a square peg in a round hole. And those are the campaigns that you want to support their ideas, maybe, but you're going to be frustrated joining them.
Right. And you may want to be vocal up front and say, here's what I really like to do, and they'll help fit you in there, hopefully. And another thing that's kind of passive is getting on a commission. I mean, you have a meeting once a month, once every couple months, once every 6 months, depending on the commission, with the city, the school board, or the county, and you show up and you have your voice heard, and you're helping to approve or not approve things that the city council's going to vote on. That's also very important to have your voice heard.
And it's the city council doesn't, they take recommendations pretty seriously from those commissions. I know when I was on the planning commission, and I've talked over the podcast about some of the issues that we dealt with: zoning, outdoor seating, CUP, conditional use permits.
Yeah.
There hasn't been too many times where they did not do what we recommended. They took our recommendations pretty seriously.
That's good.
And they maybe picked it apart. They maybe amended some of the language. That's their job. Their job's not to rubber stamp what a commission does. But the recommendation was taken very seriously by us. So it was Building on the Pine was a powerful position. Now, you're one of 9 people in a city of 20,000 that's listening to something, getting presented. We didn't always agree. Mm-hmm. We passed things 6-3, 7-2. There were times I was the lone dissenting vote. There was times me and maybe 1 or 2 other people were the lone dissenting votes. But the city council at that time did a pretty good job of reading what we had put. I could tell that a lot of them had read the minutes from those meetings. They were unapproved at the time. They never rushed into doing anything, which is always good. They took city staff comments into account. But it's pretty important. It can't be glossed over, positions like that. And I know that park board and charter commissions have a similar role. Crystal's a good example where they have a new park master plan because of the deterioration of some of the parks. What parks are we going to do what at?
Right.
And the council actually charged them to come up with something. Mm-hmm. And it's part of the comprehensive planning process. And I know our city council's not going to rubber stamp everything.
No.
They're going to pick it apart. And we got a good park board that has experienced people and some younger, newer people who are going to work together and put a great plan together. So, those things are, you can't underestimate how much change you can. It may not be so big when you think about it, but when you make a change to a zoning law, for example, that affects a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't like conditional use permits myself. I think they should be used very sparingly, because you shouldn't have rules and have 500 exceptions to them.
Right.
But one great thing about our old city planner, John Sutter, was if we started approving CUPs and getting a lot of them, his next recommendation was to change the city code. Or change the zoning law. You know, well, why do we have this? And he's now the community development director. He would sit back and let us debate it.
Yeah.
We'd go 20 minutes. He wouldn't say a word. You know, and that may be rare in some cities, but I mean, you really had the notion that you were affecting change big time. And so, and those laws could be on the books for 40 years.
So it's a very important thing to get on commissions, because let me tell you this, and this goes everything that we've talked about today, that the other side, the side that wants to grow government, the side that wants to make government the answer to all your problems, the side that wants to hold on to power with a death grip until they're 6 feet under, those are the people that will continue to be in power if you don't stand up and do something. And we're trying to paint a picture that there are things to do that are easier, like being on a commission. There are things that take a lot of work if you're super competitive and super driven, like us, like being a candidate. Those are the things, you know, somewhere in that range you can fit. And I'm sorry, you know, you don't need to watch SportsCenter for the third or fourth time for the night. You can miss the early one. It'll be on again in an hour. Okay? You can go to a meeting. You can spend a half an hour on the phone calling for somebody. You can take a night off, and you can take 3 months off, and SportsCenter will still be on when the election's over.
Yeah, Dr. Phil reruns.
You know, and I know I'm hitting on TV a lot, but some people drown themselves in books, novels, fiction. What about your life? What is important enough about your life to make you want to stand up and do something great?
Think about it like this. I had a friend of mine who was religion was his passion, and I remember he said to me, I said, well, you know, I go to church and blah blah blah. He said, let me ask you something. How many hours on a Sunday do you spend watching football? How many hours on a Sunday do you spend volunteering or doing something in your community? And those were powerful words. You know, and they were eye-opening words. What do you do when you come home? Do you lay around? Do you, eat your seventh meal? Do you? What do you do? And I get that people have kids and they have things like that, but you know, the world you leave your kids this is part of that.
I will also argue, I'm not a big fan of it's this or that. I'm a big fan of integration. And if you don't take your kids with you, I took mine with me for years, handing out flyers so that they could get a sense and a taste of what that's like. You know, they helped me with that. I would bring them around the different things that I did so that they could see that this stuff is important, and you don't sit around on your butt and not contribute to society.
You're right. I mean, my father, who's a vet, so involved in his VFW, I've been volunteering there since I was like 8 years old. You know, I saw how important it was to him. He would tell me, you know, you do volunteer work, and that's, you know, you don't take credit for it. You don't put your name on a wall. You don't do that. He never liked that. And so it was the way you are describing it to your kids, the way my dad described it to me. You know, he's not political like I am, but he had his passionate things, and they soon became my causes. You know, they soon became, you know, it wore off on me that my job wasn't to just sit, put on my iPhone, headphones, or listen to construction music, and just sleepwalk my life away. That, you know, that wasn't going to be good enough, and it never has been. I mean, it's always been a calling or a something in my blood, and the people who it's in your blood, you know who they are. You don't have to motivate them to do anything.
And here's what I find kind of sad, and we'll wrap it up here. But that last not this year, but the year previous, we had record numbers of people showing up to caucuses.
Yeah.
90% of those people, maybe more, 99, maybe somewhere in that pocket, dropped off the face of the earth, never to be heard from again.
No, they'll be back in 2020.
Right. They'll be back for that caucus because it's a presidential caucus. And
which
some of those people...
Which is not why you caucus either.
No. And some people will show up for the mid-term caucus.
Most of them only...
For governor.
Yeah, they do if they've got a favorite person running. That's what a lot of them are there for.
Yeah.
But a lot of them aren't there, for the meat and potatoes work.
Right.
Especially in the presidential year, but yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also where it's the job of people like me and you to not let those people go. I can tell you that part of what we did in Crystal, I know for me, was to glom on to people that I thought might leave if we didn't give them something to do. I mean, I met quite a few of the people we have in our city council are people that I met through the caucus convention activist thing.
Yeah.
And I saw these people all younger than me.
Yeah.
They all had a passion like I did.
Yeah.
But they didn't know what to do with it. They didn't know where to go. Once their guy was out of the race, whoever that was.
Yeah.
I know if you and I had not put them in a headlock, a lot of them would have... I mean, I'm serious about it.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, whoa. Don't drop off the face of the earth here. There's a role you could play just because your guy is not the presidential candidate. Or maybe you and I disagree on who that should be, but you know what? I can work with you here.
Yeah.
And here's where you can implement the ideas that you want to be higher up.
Yeah.
So that was... But if you and I hadn't been there to do that, and they hadn't shown up, where would we be right now? So that's something I try to get across to people. You got to identify that 26-year-old who wants to be governor. Tell them, no. You can do that in 12 years, but you got to do these 10 things first.
Yeah.
You have to work up to doing that. And would we all like the sexy jobs? Sure, we would. Would I love to run for governor next year? Absolutely. I don't want to.
Oh boy.
No, I mean, I don't want to because I'd be... I wouldn't be good up there on those debates. I think our legislative leaders wouldn't like me very much.
Yeah.
So, but that's neither here nor there. It's just, you've got to get seasoning, and you've got to get... and I don't mean you need to become a professional politician and use politics as a career. That's where I think people get off track on.
Right.
I'm not advocating that you become Phyllis Kahn.
Yeah.
I'm advocating that you step by step learn the way you would say in a job. You don't walk in and you're not the CEO at 24.
Right.
You start with a company at 22. Maybe you're the CEO when you're 47.
Yeah.
And that's how you do it. Politics isn't any different from that.
That's true. And to those of you who show up to caucus and that's all you do, it's great that you want to be involved in the political process, but I think we can take it a step further. I think we can take it a couple steps further, and I'm not going to slam you for just coming to caucus. First time I came to caucus, I really didn't know what to do afterward, but I had people that were there to talk to me, and I had a willingness to get involved. So there is something that you can do, and there are enough people that think that having less government and more freedom are important enough that you can take one day a month, that you can take 3 months of your life and put it and focus it on something that is going to, in the long run, make things better.
Hey, let me tell you something. Let me leave you with this thought. I'm going to quote George Steinbrenner, because he said something once that I is always stuck with me. He said that everybody has more to give than they think they do. You can get 110% out of somebody. He always tried to get that extra 10%.
Yeah.
How do you get that extra? Just remember that you're more capable than you think you are. You've look. I've said this before. You and I took this group, this idea, this whatever we're doing, whatever you want to call it. 10 years ago, I couldn't have predicted it. I didn't know where we were going. I didn't know what we would be doing. I didn't know anything.
Right.
Okay. I got the extra little. It was like the extra little bit came out of me with the passion of doing what we're doing.
Right.
And to me, that's where, if you're giving that 110%, you're gonna find where you belong.
Yes.
And you're going to get there eventually. Whether that's a candidate, a campaign manager, a commentator, an activist. God, there's some people who are professional protesters. You're going to,
We're not advocating for that. But.
Whether you're just a volunteer, you will get there if you give that extra little bit. You get that extra 10% out of somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we said that, it's always struck a chord with me.
Absolutely. So if you're that type of person, you feel like there's something you have to offer the world. You feel like in your city things are not going the way that you want them to go. You're seeing more taxes, more regulation. You feel like you can make a difference in your school system. You feel like you don't know what to do or what you want to do, but you need to do something. Even if it's a little bit, you have a little bit of time to give. You want to show your kids how to give back to your community. Any of that, we can help you. If you see things going on and you want to tell us about it, please tell us about it. We'll bring it up like we did with Plymouth at the beginning of this broadcast. Just email us. That's commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. commsolutionsmn@gmail.com.
And I'd add, don't stop with emailing us.
No. You got to take the next step and get involved.
Don't wait for us to do something.
Right.
We can put something on a blog, but ultimately we don't live where you live.
Right.
And we can't do all your work for you. So that's where you've got to do. You have to pick up that vacuum there where there's badly needed. I mean, there's so many times where everybody's sitting all in a room looking at each other, waiting for somebody else to say something. Don't be the person looking around.
Right. Absolutely. But if you want to do what we're doing, if you want to run for an office, let us know. We'd love to help you out. Also, look at our blog. See what we do. Go out to commsolutionsmn.com and just see how we write our articles, the podcast. Take a listen how we do it. It's nothing fancy, but two schlubs out in the West Metro can do it. You guys can do this. It's just about hard work, So with that, I mean, Andrew, unless you have anything else.
I never have anything else. I leave it all on the table. I'm not looking around at anybody in a room. Taking my own advice.
All right. Well, we're going to be back a week from today. So let's see some people take some action this week. Let us know. And we'll be happy to tell the world about what's going on where you live. Thank you, Minnesota. We love you. Take care.
If I get too caught up